What's up, folks? It's Mickle here, and today I want to talk about car. Normally when I do videos, I'm talking about prosperity. I'm in the sunshine, the palm trees, the ocean breezes. I'm looking at yachts and mansions and exotic cars. My slogan has always been, from the mobile home to where moguls roam. But I haven't forgotten the parts of being the mobile home area. I know what that's like. I saw car repossessions growing up. And when I became an adult, even after being a degree professional with a six-figure income, I still experience car repossession. I know what it's like. I want to chat with you for just a little bit, give you some tips, give you some ways and things to understand, and get you back on the road to prosperity. Trust me, you're not alone. People have been there. I've been there. So let's chat for a little bit and get you back on your way. With that being said, let's get started. All right, the first thing, let's talk a little bit about how you feel. You're probably embarrassed. It could be shock. You have things you need to do. You need to go to work. You need to go to school, maybe daycare, and you don't really want anyone to know. So you're embarrassed. It can be a stressful situation for some. But know this, you're not the first, not even the first today. You won't be the last, even if it's 11:30 p.m. You will not be the last person today. You will not be the first or the last ever in this. Unfortunately, bad things happen to good people. You're probably a good person. Bad circumstance happened to you. So that's sort of the first thing. Also, let's not be surprised. You probably knew this day was coming. I knew my day was coming. Everyone who I've ever been around who had a vehicle repossessed, they knew it was coming. So for me, it was sort of a cat and mouse game. And they eventually caught on to me. They figured out where my truck was and they picked it up. So that's that. The other thing is, this may be a blessing in disguise. As hard as it may be for some of you to feel that, understand it, acknowledge it, could be a blessing in disguise. As they say, not to get too cliche on you, but a setback can certainly be a setup for a step up. So again, it could be a blessing in disguise, but most importantly, remember, this too shall pass. All right, let's get to the acceptance of the situation. You got to accept that, yeah, and I'm making the assumption that you don't have the money to go and square up with the people that took your vehicle. That was my situation. I didn't have the money. So first thing, let's get into acceptance of the situation, meaning that you signed a contract that said that you were going to pay on time every month or pay every month with late fees until you satisfied the loan. And you didn't do it. Okay, that's the reality. You just did not do it. There's a number of reasons, but you didn't do it. So the company had the right to come and repossess their property. You gotta acknowledge that. But you also have to look at a couple of things internally. First of all, did you buy too much car? Okay, that can happen. Did you sign a loan that you knew you couldn't pay back? Did you loan money to people, family, friends, and I know they can be important, but did you loan money to people who you knew were not going to pay you back? Did you suffer any substance problems? Are you dealing with anything? Drug abuse, alcohol abuse? These are all very real life problems that can get in the way of things and other obligations. So you have to ask yourself the tough questions there. My situation was job loss. I lost my job. Unfortunately, it wasn't due to my lack of performance. I had a manager who was jealous of me. And he did what he could to remove me. And when he did, I ended up losing my job, which caused a downfall spiral of everything. What was my brutal, honest feelings? I wanted to kick his you know what. And as a manager myself, I try to be very cognizant of people's financial futures and just their overall well-being. I try to protect that. But not everyone is me. So I understand that some people, they just are very mean people, mean-spirited. Some people are not happy at home, and if they're in a position of authority at work, they can wreak havoc on your lives. So I understand that. That was my situation. We'll address that in a little bit. But the first thing is that you have, or should I say the current thing is, you have to acknowledge, hey, look, I signed this. I didn't hold up my end of the bargain. They repossessed my car. So we've acknowledged that. And from here, we can move to the next thing. Okay, so getting around now. You don't have a car. I'm assuming you don't have a second car. That was my situation. It was my only vehicle, so there was nothing to fall back on. I had to go to my parents and borrow their car. Fortunately, I was a good son, and when I was doing really well, I bought them a car and I gave it to them. And so when I fell on hard times, they just ended up letting me get the car back, and I used it until things got better. So in today's era, that was a long time ago for me, there was no Uber, there was no Lyft, and I lived in a scenario where a taxi wasn't going to work. Fortunately today, you do have Uber, you do have Lyft. Maybe you have parents, maybe you have a friend that you can borrow the car from, maybe you can carpool. But you have to obviously look at alternative ways to get around. So that's sort of what, the scenario is in getting around now. You got to go to someone else or other people to get around. So let's also talk about next what not to do. All right, what not to do. If your car has been repossessed, and again, we're assuming it has been, let's not try to go improperly get it back. Let's not go and take on this vengeance attitude that I'm going to bust into the compound and get my car back because I had a spare key, or I'm going to beat in the head of the guy who took my car. Remember, he's not out to get you. He's just doing his job, or she's doing her job. They're driving the tow truck. They didn't have anything to do with this. So they had to go and get your car and repossess it. They're just doing a job. So please do not take it out on the people that picked it up. They were contracted to do something and they did it. Other things not to do is don't lose your head, okay? Again, I've said it. I've lost a house. I've lost a car. I've lost the credit cards. I've lost the short-term savings, the long-term savings. I've lost it all. But here's the thing. As long as you don't lose your head, you can put all the pieces back together again. You just gotta keep your head. Keep your calm. When you lose your head, you're not in a position to make any kind of good negotiations. You're going to get made. If you negotiate from a position of weakness with your heart in the game and you're all, upset about what to do, you're going to get taken. So please try to keep your head. All right, what to do financially? Again, that was my case. It's everyone's case. You probably weren't able to make the payments. So it's really just a financial thing. You're probably here because you have one source of income. That was my case, and again, for everyone, I know it's one source of income, and that is a very risky proposition. I don't care if you start thinking, well, I'm going to invest. I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to invest in that. You got to remember, investments give a return on something. That's not going to be something that's liquid and quick. You have an income problem. So what you have to do is look for secondary incomes. I know some people think, you know what, I'll do whatever. I don't want to use a fast food change name because I don't want to talk down on any particular brand. But someone will say, well, I will go and do burgers and fries if I have to. Here's the problem with that. That doesn't work for everybody. Again, I was a degree professional around other degree professionals. That means you tend to move pretty efficiently with most things. It doesn't mean that people without those fancy degrees, and let's not call them fancy, let's just say degrees. People without degrees aren't efficient. What I found is the higher education tends to move a little more efficiently. And so you like being around like minds. You're just more comfortable there. So you're not just going to go from being, let's say, an accountant or an analyst of sorts, and then start working at some sort of burger or chicken chain. It's just, you're not going to fit in. So try to find some sort of secondary income source so that you always have a second income. Maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's a night job, but I just don't like one single source of income, because if it's compromised, then you got trouble. And I just don't like that. Other thing is, make a deal with your bankers, right? You finance this car with someone, let's be honest, they don't want it back, okay? Most cars that I've seen that have been repossessed, they have not been well maintained. So they don't want it back. If they get it back, they're just gonna wholesale it at a price way less than the balance that you owe, which, you know, you're gonna be on the hook for that balance. So they're gonna wholesale it, they're not gonna keep it. You know, it's not a prized possession for them. So they're gonna try to do something like, you know, put a payment on the back end or whatever. Maybe you've had late payments before, well, you have had late payments before, and it's just gotten to a point where it's out of hand and they don't want to do that anymore. What happened to me was the account just went to collections, right? And it stayed there because I ended up being out of work for a very, very long time, way longer than anyone thought I should have. And it wasn't due to my lack of effort. It was just a tough market. It was a tough time, right? So it happens. You'll be fine eventually. So my account went to collections. And when I got back on my feet, I believe when I called them, because, you know, of course, at this point, your credit report is shot, right? It's all messed up, at least for that account and probably for others as well. So what I did was I called the institution back who had my vehicle, who had the loan, because the vehicle was long gone. And I said, you know, what do I owe? And they said, well, I think the balance was about maybe 18,000 or something like that. I don't remember. It was a noticeable amount. And so what they tend to try to do is say, okay, well, what can you do? What do you have? They're going to try to get the biggest amount they can up front, and then keep the rest of the payments to the least or the smallest duration possible. So if they can get you to pay it all off in 6 months, they'll do it. Or if they'll get you to pay it all off in a year, they'll do it. So what I did was I waited until I got a pretty decent amount of money. I got really fortunate with a tax return, and that year my tax return was about $25,000. So I called them up, and, you know, they play this sort of back and forth game. Well, you know, here's your balance. Let's say it's 18,000. 18,000. What can you pay? And it's like, well, you know, can you do 16 or can you do 18 or whatever? I got mine negotiated down to 9,000. And so they'll say, okay, I got to go and talk to my manager and see if I can get this approved. But can you do this today? So, yep, I can do it today. So they go, they talk to the manager, and it's not a check. They want Western Union. So I went, you know, we came to terms. I Western Union the money, and then boom, my balance was clean. But now it's still on my credit report. So you do have to, you know, call in or write into your credit reporting agency, send them the receipts that you've squared up on your account, and then that part is actually done. But that's also a good time to check your credit report in general. See what else is on there. Is there anything outstanding that you can square up with and get those things removed? Other thing, do not run out and jump into another bad loan. Don't take the first train smoking. Don't just sign up for another quick deal, because that can be a very detrimental situation as well. So that is that part. Now let's talk about something also very important, perhaps the most important, and that is keeping a motivating mindset throughout this entire ordeal. It's high, keeping your motivation up while you're going through this. As tough as this might be, I would say during this moment, during this time, look for your dream car. And I know it's tough, it's hard to come up with. You're like, hey, I just lost my current car, my job, I got to get there, or I'm trying to get a job, my kids got to get around. And here you are talking to me about a dream car. Yes, I'm talking to you about a dream car because you have to not focus on where you are. You have to focus on where you're going. You have to put your mind on something that lifts your spirits, makes you feel good, that gives you that burst of energy that will keep you going. So when you get there, you can look back and say, yeah, I remember when. I remember doing this time. Right now, the power of the entire internet is at our fingertips. We have smartphones. You can become an expert on whatever car it is you want. For me, it was a Lamborghini Murcielago at the time. And you're like, oh gosh, okay. How am I gonna, my car just got repossessed and you're talking to me about a Lamborghini and not the space shuttle? I get it, I understand. But you have to focus on something. And so by focusing on something else, it will take your mind off the negativity of the current situation. So mine was a Lamborghini. Maybe you want a Cadillac Escalade, or maybe you want a truck, maybe a Chevy or Dodge. Maybe you want a Hemi or whatever it is. Focus on that. Spend time. Which color do you want? You want 4-wheel drive. You want it lifted. Big tires, little tires. What type of audio system? You want electric or gas? Spend time, because again, this makes you feel good. This keeps you going forward to the path of prosperity, and it keeps your spirits up. Here's the other cool thing. You don't have to have a dime in your pocket to test drive a car. Now again, for me, I was not going to go and test drive a Lamborghini, okay? It doesn't work like that at that level. But in the more pedestrian style cars, your Chevy, your Honda, Toyota, Ford, those types of things, you can test drive those cars. When you go to the dealership, they'll be happy to give you a test drive. You don't have to say, hey, my current car is repossessed, I don't have a dime in my pocket. You don't have to disclose that information. You're there as a potential buyer and you're doing your research. So, get the brochures, take them home. It will lift your spirits. Do yourself that favor. Something else is, who are you associated with? Who are those 5 or 6 people that you associate with the most? Is their financial situation about like yours? Is kind of close? It probably is. I'm not saying throw those people away, but I will say you do have to keep better financially elite company. And I did a video on that down in Fisher Island in Miami. I would recommend just check it out to give you some tips on getting with a more efficient and more affluent circle. You'll see the things they're doing. We talked a little bit about tax returns. Maybe they're making investments. Maybe they're in a more lucrative career. Not the people you're with, but people that you want to be around to change your situation. So you do have to watch that. Cut the dead weight. If you were around people that were weighing you down to help put you in that situation, you got to lessen that. If it's family, okay, you can't choose your family, but you can choose how often you are around them. So please be careful with your circle. And then also, when you find that dream car, take a picture of it. Take a video of it. Keep it in your phone. You probably have a mobile phone or some sort of computing device, maybe a tablet or something. Look at it periodically. Look at it, in fact, look at it frequently, because there's probably so many decisions that has to be made on the one you want that it should keep you busy for a long time. Look at other, groups and platforms where they talk about that brand or perhaps that model. You should get excited about this, and you can spend a lot of good, high quality, high energy time thinking about something that's way more positive than your current situation. Let's talk about increasing your financial literacy. I started reading a lot of finance and money management books. I had been doing it a long time, even when I found myself in that situation of losing my car, losing my truck. My vehicle came not just as a job loss situation, but also, being brutally honest, I was over-invested in real estate. I was way too much in that one category, and you really shouldn't be that way. So when things started to compound, The job loss was just really the icing on the cake. But becoming financially literate, understanding more about credit scores, credit ratings at credit reporting agencies, learning more about savings, emergency savings, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs. You don't, this is not the time to start talking about generation skipping transfer taxes and dynasty trusts, but your basic financial literacy, you can get better at those things and practice them more. Again, it doesn't say you don't know anything about them, but you should be beefing that stuff up all the time, especially in this moment, because there's a very good chance you saw this coming and you didn't practice good, solid financial management principles to put yourself in a better situation. Break the poverty circle, right? If you've seen this in your family, other people have gotten cars repossessed, then this could be your opportunity to never go back down that road again. How about becoming a millionaire? What if no one in your circle of friends or family has ever become a millionaire? This can be your springboard to get on that path. Millionaires are born or they're made every day. You can be one of them with enough time, with enough strategy and enough energy. You can be a millionaire. You become a multimillionaire. So do not rule that out. This could be a very good opportunity for you to clean the slate and get on to a path of prosperity that you never ever thought coming. All right, let's talk about when you do get that next car. A couple of things. Don't overly obsess over the interest rate, okay? Because if you started looking at financial literacy things and you say, well, this interest rate is high, this interest rate is low, I get it, I understand. You don't want to pay any interest, to be brutally honest. If you have to pay a little more interest than what the current good credit score is, it's okay. Even if you have to extend your payment terms, maybe from 60 months to 72, and I'm sure all the financial gurus out there will say, hey, no, that's bad advice. Listen, just because you extend your loan from 60 months to 72 months or 48 to 60, it doesn't mean you have to keep the loan, okay? It just means you've put yourself in a situation where you have a much better feeling that you can make the payment. Now, if you get extra money, put it towards the principal. You can pay that loan off early, but don't put yourself in another situation where a payment is too high for you to make, and then you're back in this situation. So it is a much better scenario to extend the terms, even if it's slightly, less favorable interest rate, but just focus on it. Eliminate it as soon as you can. Because remember, if you're at a deficiency with your auto loan, there's probably other places that need to be beefed up. So you're going to have other things to do, whether it's insurance, groceries, childcare, whatever the case. So don't, a car loan is only going to last so long anyway. It's not the rest of your financial life. So if you got to sort of deal with a tough thing for just a little while, it's okay. You'll be just fine. Maintain the car. I've seen a lot of cars repossessed and they haven't been maintained. If you're in this situation, ask yourself, when was the last time you washed that car? When was the last time you vacuumed it out? Did the tires need to be replaced? Was it smoking? Was the check engine light on? Were any of those instrument gauges on? Was the timing chain replaced? All those many things I've seen so many times, or not so many times, I've seen people didn't maintain the car. And so when you're not maintaining it, you're not that heavily vested in it, you slack off. And then if it's repossessed and someone sees it being picked up, and I've seen them being picked up, they don't particularly look like they're in good shape. So maintain your car. You'll take a lot more pride in, taking care of it and ensure that it lasts. And speaking of things that last, don't try to impress people who see that you're down. So that means if you were driving a Honda Civic before and that got that got repossessed, you don't have to try to jump from Honda to Lexus to show everyone who saw you while you were down that, hey, look, now I have a life of prosperity. No, don't do that. I'm not saying don't go from a Honda Civic to a Honda Accord if you can afford to do it, but don't try to buy too much car to impress other people or make yourself feel like you've prospered before it's time. If it's time to do that, that's fine. But get a car that, one, that you can maintain, and two, that's reliable. I like, and again, this is nothing against Range Rover. I don't know anything about Range Rover. It's a very nice looking upscale truck. But I heard years ago they used to have a lot of mechanical problems. I don't know if it was electrical or what. No one in my family drove Range Rovers. No one knew how to work on them. So it would have been very silly of me to go from a repossession to a car that I knew nothing about, none of the history of, none of my friends or family could ever help me out on. So be cognizant of that. Be very careful about trying to go out and get too much car that you don't particularly understand the brand or how to maintain. So there you go. Those are just a few pointers. I hope these things help you out. Remember, it's not the end of the world. Cars will be repossessed. You don't have to always be a part of it. We talked about some great things. If you need to wind it back, take another look at them, please do so. Go ahead. But you'll be back on the road in no time. And that being said, from the mobile home to where moguls roam, I am Anthony Von Mickle. Activate Gorilla Grind mode. Let's work.